So my name is Katie Weintraub. I am the Partnerships and Programs Coordinator at Sinal Vale. Sinal Vale is a center for ecosystem regeneration in the Atlantic Forest in Rio de Janeiro, the state of Rio. We're about 50 kilometers from outside of downtown Rio. So even though the place is an oasis in the Atlantic Forest, we're actually very close to the urban city center. Sinal Valley has evolved over the years. It was founded in 2011. Our director and founder, Thais Corral, is a well-known Brazilian social entrepreneur and one of the big leaders of the ecofeminism movement in Brazil. And she created Sinal Valley after a long trajectory of work in the environmental and social sector, in implementation of public policies and NGOs. And she really had this dream of creating a space that was place-based, after seeing so many projects and policies that start and finish because there's not continuity. She really believed that the only way to really transform the world is through place-based projects, but landing in the territory. So Sinal Valley was created in 2011. It started as a living laboratory where many experiments for tree planting and regenerative agriculture and education and bioconstruction all started happening. And over the years, we've evolved to be what we are now calling ourselves a biohub that prototypes and initiatives and promotes multidisciplinary learning in the field of the regenerative bioeconomy. And what does that mean? What does it mean to be a biohub? A biohub is a place that creates solutions, that teaches those solutions, and expands them throughout the bioregion. So it's a place that creates nature-based solutions that can be scaled up throughout what we call our bioregion, which is the Guanabara Bay, which is an extremely important area surrounding the metropolitan Rio area of Rio de Janeiro. Next slide. And what does our biohub do? What do we deal with the challenges of our time and the challenges of the Atlantic forest, which is one of the most biodiverse and yet endangered biomes in the world, with only 12% of its original forest. And the region has been extremely degraded due to many years of farming, agriculture, of urban encroachment. The Rio area has 13 million people. And 70% of the Brazilian population lives in the Atlantic forest. This particular region is extremely affected by poverty, unemployment, crime, and lack of infrastructure. We see in the Rio Olympics, we heard all about the sanitation issues related to the Guanabara Bay. And this whole region where Sinal is located is really much a reflection of many of these small communities around the Guanabara Bay with the lack of sanitation. Yet at the same time, it's so rich in natural resources, in biodiversity, huge areas of forest and green area. And there's a lot of challenges in terms of lack of coordination between local institutions, rural landowners, the companies, that have hampered really large-scale restoration efforts despite the huge need and the huge natural resources that exist here. Their area also has huge potential for food security and many, many small landowners that produce food out here. So what has Sinal do Vale as a biohub? Because the idea that Sinal, and I think all the long run members agree on, is that we should not exist just for ourselves, for our own little piece of paradise, but to be able to really have an impact in our surrounding regions, at what we call the bioregions. So what we've created at Sinal is the Caminho de Recôncavo da Guanabara, which is the Guanabara Bay Trail Initiative, which is a 110-kilometer long-distance trail for hiking and biking that connects 5 municipalities, passes through 11 protected areas, and connects 3 restoration hubs or regeneration hubs, El Nagual and Mehegua, which are in different municipalities. And what is the idea of the trail? The trail uses ecotourism as a tool to catalyze a regenerative economy. It's a trail that enhances biodiversity by valuing those properties, as well as restoring. We've been mapping degraded land along the trail in order to then access funds to then restore those areas. We're also promoting agroecological food chains. As I mentioned, there are many landowners along the trail that are producing either in traditional agriculture ways or already in organic and agroecological forms. But there's a lack of market demand, and the trail, as we know, when you bring tourism to a place, when you bring people, you also generate purchasing, you generate the economy. So with this trail, we bring people from Rio, from the region, even international groups now, as Sinal has such an international reach, to these places along the trail where they then generate income for the landowners. And then finally, to promote the cultural and natural heritage. Because this region, despite its fame, often, people from Rio don't even consider this periphery region a touristic area, despite the fact that it's actually extremely beautiful in terms of natural attractions, waterfalls, and the rich historical heritage here. This region was extremely important in the 16, 17, and 1800s. In terms of the Portuguese colonization. And these areas was part of the gold trails where gold and coffee was brought through Rio and then exported around the world, which means that there's also a deep Afro-Brazilian heritage here, because many of the enslaved populations passed through this area and then, after slavery ended, created resistance communities and reestablished the area. So the trail is also working with what they're called quilombos, which are these modern day resistance communities that value Afro-Brazilian culture and heritage, continue the traditions, the music, the spirituality. So the trail also is working with these quilombos to be able to bring more groups to promote a community-based tourism. With the trails also, we've also worked to map and identify ruins along the trail, because there are artifacts and heritage sites from over 400 years ago that are not being acknowledged, the story's not being told. So the trail also has this vision to activate that. And also, we've seen how tourism and the trail is a way to weave together many different types of stakeholders, from the Secretaries of Environment and Tourism to private stakeholders like the companies that exist in the region, as well as people who like trails, people who like nature, people who want to get to know the region. It's a really beautiful way. Tourism away is a beautiful way to bring these kind of diverse people together. And so the trail actually began in 2022, 2 years ago. And it was our big first initiative going outside the boundaries of our 200 hectares at Sinal. And so the first year was a lot about mapping and designing the trail. We did a really community-based approach where we worked with local landowners, local guides, local park managers to identify the different existing trails, what areas could be developed, what trails need to be managed, what trails didn't exist, to actually design the 110 kilometers. It's 10 days hiking, actually. But the idea is that you can do small different itineraries, along the trail. So 1, 2 day, 3 day trails. And over this time, we've been able to rally and engage many, many different stakeholders, as I mentioned, the landowners, the farmers, trail guides, students, the protected area, the managers. We also have a really strong capacity building component of the trail, where we've trained over 250 young people and entrepreneurs in ecological history, tour guide training, and ecotourism business skills. So the ecological history is also this aspect of what's so rich about this trail is the integration of history and culture and the stories from the place with the spectacular nature. So a lot of the ecotourism guides that have much more knowledge about the trails and the biodiversity, we teach them about the rich history, their stories that have not been told, that the average person does not know, so that they can share those stories. And vice versa, the ones that are more involved in the historians to also be trained in stuff about bird watching and fauna and trees. So every tour guide can have this really integrated approach. And of course, also the business skills, as there are many entrepreneurs or potential entrepreneurs that can benefit from ecotourism, but don't necessarily have the business skills or the marketing or communications. So the project also works to develop those capacities. And in this last year, another big action that we've done has been securing funding, actually $65,000 in investment for infrastructure for the entrepreneurs along the trail. So that's another role of Sinal as what we call the biohub or the articulator for the bioregion. We've been able to access funding from philanthropic opportunities to then reinvest in the local entrepreneurs along the trail that are unlikely to ever have access to this kind of capital. So there's been benefits for 2 of the campsites, improving their infrastructure, one of the quilombos, a community center for traditional fishermen, and 4 farming cooperatives, including 2 women-led associations. So I think my time is coming to an end here, but the trail has really been this amazing opportunity for Sinal to get to know the region, to get to know the challenges, but also the amazing opportunities, and really bring a really diverse group of people to get to know this place and using tourism as a way to activate what we call the regenerative bioeconomy.
Thank you, Katie, for a very thorough presentation. Who am I to sing the praises of Sinal de Vale? But I just wanted to ask you just a final question before we close, of what, if you could just sum up what your hopes for the future of the trail are, as I've seen it grow. It's been 2 years and it's been growing fast and steady, but then we're at this platform where everything can explode. What would your dream be to see in the trail in the coming years?
Yeah, I guess my dream would be that every single, well, we've divided the trail into these 9 sections, and I think the dream would be that, I don't know, in 10 or 15 or 20 years, that each one of these sections would offer a really rich itinerary so that visitors, international visitors, local visitors could come and visit kind of these 3 areas, that they could see areas that have been restored, biodiversity that has come back along the trail. They would be able to visit landowners and farmers and buy local products that have been produced and grown in an ecologically preserved way. And then finally would be able to visit and learn about the deep, rich history through, I guess, guides who have been trained, signs that have been put up, and ruins that have been, documented and revitalized. So I guess that would be my dream.